I'm Dr. Timothy J. Fitzgerald. I teach in the history department at JMU, and I teach world history and Middle Eastern history. I encounter many students in my GHist 101 World History to 1500 class, but I teach other courses in pre-modern Middle Eastern history, in the history of empires, and in the practice of history, also as a seminar that I teach. So my younger brothers like to tease me that I've never stopped my education, and I'm in, like, what would I be in, 26th grade now or something like that. So yes, it's a journey. It's a lifelong process. That's actually part of why we're in it. I have a relationship with Virginia in my education. I went to the College of William and Mary, that other state school of some reputation in Virginia. I really enjoyed my time there. I majored in history and government there. And then I went directly on to graduate school in Boston at Harvard University and was there for a number of years before finishing up. And then I've taught in a few places. I taught at Rice University in Houston, Texas for a couple years before finally coming to JMU. And one thing that's always attracted me to JMU and has really been borne out while I've been here is I think it's got a unique identity as a school that is large enough to have resources and programmatic opportunities for students and faculty that are characteristic of a larger university. You know, lots of different majors, opportunities for collaboration, many different study abroad programs, those kind of large university opportunities. But yet it has a history and a culture of teaching, of learning, of student-teacher contact that is more characteristic of a small school, a liberal arts type college. And I think that's a fairly unique identity. There was something like that actually at William and Mary, which I quite enjoyed, you know, where you can have great teachers who are also scholars in their fields. And that's something I think to really cherish and preserve here at JMU, and I hope it doesn't change as JMU tries to grow toward the future. Because one thing I'm always encouraging my students to do is travel and study foreign languages. Again, this idea of approaching and encountering foreign cultures directly. And you can see how that grows out of my own interest in Middle Eastern studies and Islamic studies. I've been able to live in different parts of the Middle East for extended periods. It's a joke between my wife and I that we honeymooned in Syria because we got married and lived there for a year. Not a joke in the sense that Syria is not a great place to live or honeymoon. Quite the contrary. It was one of the best years and a half of my life, just in so many ways, intellectually and personally. But that's, I've spent considerable time living in Damascus and in other parts of Syria. So on another subject that we could go into if you're interested, I'm quite saddened to see what's happening there, of course, now. I have many friends and family even in that part of the world. But from Syria, I've also been able to travel in other parts of the Middle East, Lebanon, Egypt, Jordan. I've lived extensively, traveled a fair bit, and Turkey as well. You know, as someone who studies the Ottoman Empire, you obviously need to know Istanbul and spend some time doing work there. So, and other kinds of boring international travel that most of your professors have done. But I guess what makes me a little bit different is the time I've spent in the Middle East. The short answer is yes, for sure. I mean, not only the Middle East, but if we think more broadly about the Islamic world, which extends well beyond the Middle East. Most of the Islamic world is outside the Middle East. These are regions and peoples, cultures about which quite a bit of ignorance, and even more than ignorance, quite a bit of enmity and ill will persists for a variety of reasons, historical and cultural, some related to the media and people like yourself. But yes, JMU, these are good students, and in the context of my courses and many others on campus, I think we're working against these things, but there's a lot of ignorance and misunderstanding out there, to be sure. Let me give you an example that I think resonates with a lot of the anxieties people have about the Middle East today. And that's that when people look at the Middle East, they tend to assume that this is a region of kind of irreconcilable conflict, specifically religious conflict, and that these are peoples and identities that just can't come together and have been fighting forever. That's the general understanding. Well, by studying Ottoman history, for example, you see that this is not the case. That in fact there were very, very long periods of relatively happy coexistence. Now, sometimes this can be romanticized and said to be a bit happier than really it was, but Christians, Jews, and Muslims did get along in many different contexts. Sometimes they worked together in the same economic activities. They participated in shared rituals or festivals. They went to law courts and registered contracts as business partners. So when you see these kinds of things, not only does it, in a way, give you hope for kinds of cooperation that seem so distant today, but it also puts the lie to this notion that these peoples have been forever fighting, and that's really all they can do.